What is PE distortion, and how long have you been working on it?
Well, I consider my formal start of the project to have happened in December 31, 1999, when everybody was looking at their computers and thinking that they were going to quit working at the stroke of midnight. And I was in the sound room, listening to a competitor's product. And when I had my epiphany that started formally this PE distortion research. So that's the answer of when I think it formally started. It took a while. I didn't originally think of it as that. It was just after a while working with production people and whatnot that I just said, we need a name. We need to give this whole thing a name so that we all know what we're talking about here. And so I remember going into the purchasing office and saying to Sherwood at the time, Sherwood, I got a great idea. And he goes, what's that? And I go, we're going to call this stuff that we're working on PE distortion.
So, but what exactly is it? What is PE distortion?
Well, technically, it's that the electrons, there's activity of electron flow that's outside of the conventional analysis that the engineers do. It's not captured. I kind of think of it as the traditional EE work is almost like two-dimensional, as opposed to the real deal with this PE distortion is that there's a time component to it. And so I would say the easiest thing is to compare, is to think about acoustics. Now, everybody doesn't understand acoustics or, whatnot, but everybody at least understands that acoustics exists and that, you do various different things to control it. Technically minded people are aware that it's, the reverberation of the energy around a physical space, and that takes this finite amount of time. And if it's too long, our human systems overload with trying to decipher it, so we try to keep it under control. We know that you can't have no acoustics because it's not physically possible. So to tell the world that there's another phenomenon, I call it PE distortion, that sort of has characteristics similar to acoustics, sounds a little bit fairy tale-ish or, at least certainly it's foreign to most people's ears. But I do believe that is the case. There is the excess electron flow, and it has to go around the system. And unfortunately, as it goes around the system, just as you can have a resonance mechanically in acoustics that will artificially boost the apparent power level of that energy, you can have similar kind of phenomenons, electrical phenomenons, that while this energy is flowing around the system, that it actually can come out louder. And
so you're talking about, as I've heard you mention before, you've called them rogue electrons. So you're speaking of electrons basically floating in airspace, not through a piece of electronics and not through a piece of copper or a wire, but floating in air. Mm-hmm. And those rogue electrons are creating an audible artifact?
Yes, they are. And so most conventional engineers will say, well, we know you haven't invented anything new. You're just, coming up with a new name. We know about electromagnetic interference, EMI. And but it's a little bit more involved than that, where there actually are electrically conductive pathways being created in our environment that literally act like as though there was another wire going from one point to another.